President Donald Trump begins his week with a new chief of staff. Trump swore in former Homeland Security Secretary General John Kelly as the new chief of staff, predicting he'll do a, quote, spectacular job. General Kelly takes over for Reince Priebus, who was pushed out last week after a well-documented fallout with the Trump administration. An average of recent polls shows the president's approval rating is at just under 40%. But among Trump supporters, including those here in Minnesota, the president continues to have strong support. A recent Reuters poll shows more than 70% of Republicans approve of the job the president is doing. But that is down 6 points from earlier this month as headlines continue over health care, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, frequent Twitter outbursts, and the Russia investigation. WCCO chief political reporter Pat Kessler joins us now. And Pat, well, what another weekend, right? I mean, the news never stops here.
Yeah, it really doesn't. The president tweeting this morning again that there is no White House chaos after this last week of chaos in the White House. But the president did, during the last few minutes, swear in General Kelly as the new chief of staff. I think General Kelly does inspire a lot of confidence among a lot of people. The big question is, can he contain President Trump from going off message as he did every single day last week when the health care bill failed in the Senate? So this is going to be a pretty big opportunity for the president to push the reset button. And if anybody can do it, people think that General Kelly can.
One of the things, Pat, that his critics have said Priebus didn't do well is sort of manage the repeal or help manage the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. But despite that, President Trump still has some pretty big approval numbers, at least amongst his base, right?
Yeah, isn't that interesting that overall his approval rating is 35 to 40%, very, very low for a president in the first 6 months. But most Republicans support him. So it's an interesting thing that he's got going here. I wonder if this might change in the future if, in fact, the president is not able to accomplish some of the big campaign promises of his, including health care, including tax reform, which is coming up next, or the border wall. All of these kinds of things he's got to deliver on, or else perhaps that support will erode also, and that would not be good.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like people are blaming Congress. The president has managed to set up a situation where he says, I'm ready, right. You guys act, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because the president has been able to off-put some of that blame. He is saying that it's not my fault. We have a Republican House and a Republican Senate and a Republican White House, but it's not my fault. It's their fault. And that's what he ran on, too. It's always someone else's fault. He is pointing out the problems, but now he's in charge, so we'll see if that changes also. Yeah, but you make a great point on this, because he blames Congress and the swamp which he has promised to drain.
Yeah. So does his base, so far anyway.
That's right, that's right.
What about North Korea? This is pretty serious, obviously, another missile test.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of options does the United States really have here?
Well, they're dwindling options. It's troubling to see the United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley tweet this morning, "No more talking," meaning, presumably, that the time for diplomacy is over and the time for action is near. The UN could vote on more sanctions, but what more could you possibly do to North Korea, leaving open the real possibility of military actions, which could spark a conflagration on the peninsula there. So there aren't many options left, but the president is doing something that a lot of other presidents have not done. He is directly confronting North Korea, and we're going to have to see where this goes literally within hours here in the next couple of days.
All right, Pat, lot to follow. We know you'll be on top of it. We'll see you back tonight at 5 and 6.